Hey YouTube, this is Off Grid on Friday. My wife and I, Karina, wanted to talk about finding our forgotten well, tips and tricks.
Hey everybody, welcome to our YouTube channel. This is our family, and we are off grid on Friday.
So when we first bought the property, we were able to get a really good price on it because they claimed there was a wellhead, but they couldn't provide any documentation that that wellhead existed. This legend of the well, I called it the legend of the well, because wells being dug are extremely expensive. So expensive, anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 just to dig it and put a pipe down there.
Yeah.
So finding the well was probably my main goal for a very long time. And
Point of contention.
anyway, so with that, we wanted to provide some tips and tricks on the way that we found it. As we looked for the well, first off, the first thing I did was I just ran off into the woods and started kicking bushes over,
Like
right?
a crazy person.
Well, you know,
Crawling under bushes.
crawling under bushes for a couple hours while my family...
Death crawl.
Well, my family
Death crawl.
watched, you know. So I found that just looking around on 10 acres, before we had the roads or anything, nothing was cleared out. It was just complete wilderness, right next to Bureau of Land Management property. Just never been lived on, never been touched, but there was this legend of the well. So first thing that we did is obviously physically look. So we started trying to triangulate it. And what I mean by is we tried to start looking at the geography of our property and seeing if I was going to dig a well here, because I'm just putting wells on a parcel, right? There was a parcel that was large and it was cut into 4 pieces, and we took one of those parcels, and supposedly each parcel got a wellhead on it. Now, a wellhead itself is only about 8 inches in diameter and only goes out of the ground from 8 inches to 2 feet. And when there is underbrush and trees and bushes everywhere, that is a daunting task. So we had to start looking at, using some intuition, looking at if I were going to drill a well and there wasn't a road, how far would I go into each parcel and where would I drill it? Right? The real triangulation, right, the real tightening of our search area happened when we started researching paperwork. Not right when we started searching paperwork, though. I contacted the county. I contacted any kind of public water source I could. All dead ends. Started making calls to all different types of well digging operations in our area, and our area where our property is located is very rural. We like to call it the back country, right?
It really is.
It's out there. It's awesome, but it's out there, right?
We do have neighbors, but it is out there.
It's not like a city. It's not like a city neighbor, but they are people within. If you shot a gun, they could hear it. I wouldn't say with an earshot.
In the dark, walking around, you're like, I don't feel safe.
One day I came home and my wife was on speakerphone with a nice older man, and she had found the actual operation that dug the well. She was able to give him our parcel number, which is an APN, or it's was it Associated Parcel Number?
I can't remember what it stands for.
I don't remember what the A stands for, but the PN is parcel number,
yeah.
right? So this older gentleman was able to actually remember drilling the well back in 1989.
So I remember when I called him, I left a voicemail trying to find out if this company even still had this guy, which I assumed that this guy was the original, owner.
Yeah.
He called me back, to my surprise, because this was drilled back in 89.
Yeah.
So, he probably was older then, so I was surprised to get a call back from the guy. And he remembered drilling the wells on the 4 parcels. And I remember talking to him, and he said, yeah, I would assume that they would be pretty close together. And I told him, I said, oh my gosh, I never even thought of that. That makes total sense. And so we kind of went based off of that, and he kept telling us that it was around the mature oak trees. And I kept thinking about that, and he said mature oak trees, but in 89. Not at that point in time where we're living.
30 plus years ago.
So mature oak trees, 100 years old.
Yeah.
Like mature oak.
Yep.
So I kept thinking, and the oak trees that were really mostly on our parcel were mature now, but probably weren't mature then. So I was asking him, I said, "Oh, do you mean the ones that are in the road?" And then he said, "Oh, for sure." And then that's when it all kind of came together. I was like, of course he would put it close to the road on each parcel because he wants it closer together.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
So he talked to us and he basically got it kind of narrowed down where it was at, remember?
Yes.
And I was super excited, and I told John he had to not go to work the next day.
Not a problem. Sorry, Mark.
And so we went up to the land. So we had the kids in the car, the dog in the car, and we told them, don't even get out. We're just going to look really fast before we make day camp. So John went one way, I went another. And what was funny was when I went my way, I thought of joking and telling you, I found it!
Which wouldn't have been cool because I was so
just
hopeful.
Joking.
This was very important to me for a very long time. I had charts, highlighter, I downloaded all the Google Earth Pro, I looked at it for many hours.
Yep, so we split up and and I was thinking to tell him I found it, but just joking. He said, I found it! And I thought, that booger, he's playing a joke on me. And he screamed again, I found it! And it just sounded so convincing that it was then that I knew. I was like, oh my gosh, he actually found it.
So from my perspective, we went off in this area. There's a flat area where we made our campground. We actually call it Well Digger Camp. Not my idea, my friend's idea, but we call it Well Digger Camp for this express purpose. I was like, oh, I think the wellhead would be here. This is nice and flat. This is where a large drilling truck would back up. I looked around. I was like, oh, no dice. And I was like, oh, I got to take a leak. But my kids were right there. I'm going to drop down this small little ravine and take a leak. As I'm sitting there taking a leak, like in action, I'm just like, hey, these woods are very nice. And I looked over and I was like, OM goodness. I saw what at first looked like a tree stump. Right? Steel pipe rusts to brown. Well, all the trunks are brown. But one thing you know about nature is there's no straight lines and there's no perfect circles. Right? There might be things that are close, but not perfect. Well, this had straight lines and a perfect circle on top. And I started saying I found it before I even went over and actually made sure that I found it because I was pretty excited.
And it was like how many feet away from the road we'd made that we'd passed by so many times?
It's like 10, it's not even 10 feet. It's not even 10 feet.
No, it's more than 10
I think you'd be surprised if you look. No, it's maybe 10 feet. It's super
It was very
close.
upsetting. It was very upsetting to find it so close.
It was
But it was under a ton of brush.
Yeah. To our credit,
to our credit.
I think is the problem.
But so that's pretty much the story.
Yeah. So just to recap, physically look, which I think we should do that in reverse. I should have done all of the phone calls, call the county or whatever water authorities in your area, see if they have record of it. In our case, they didn't have current records of it. It had been drilled a long time ago. So they're like, sorry, you have no well. And all of the looking at the maps, studying the geography, and starting using intuition, right? So first thing is look at your parcel and think, where's the closest easement and access road? And where would be the best place to drill? Start trying to take small pieces, right? I would look all over the place, all over the time, like a chicken with its tail feathers on fire. So I just didn't have really good quadrants, looking. So I didn't really get good sectors.
We have 10 acres. So I think when you talk about location, I think what you're talking about more in depth is talk to your neighbors and find out if they have a well. And then find out how deep the well is. Because a lot of times, well drillers will try to go to the lowest point and drill there. So lowest point, or maybe if there's an aquifer, right? An aquifer in the area. It's an underground river, if I'm not saying that word right. So like locating that and figuring out by that location where the well might be dug. So I think those are some points that I think that we initially didn't think of, that we were kind of hitting ourselves afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, we should have thought of that. And the wells were dug at the same time, so it only makes sense that, you know,
They'd be in close proximity.
it would be in close proximity, because if you have a well driller being paid to drill all 4 wells, they're not gonna. Not to throw anybody under the bus here, but they're not gonna go out of their way to make it harder on themselves. So just think like easiest access.
Oh, lastly, be prepared to get dirty. No matter what, when we found it, clearing that out was a dirty job.
It was, yeah.
A dirty job. So.
And there were pack rats around it too.
Yeah.
Which was freaky at first, but then they ended up being really cute.
They're adorable. You ever seen Ratatouille? Ratatouille?
Ratatouille. They don't want any part of you.
They're gentle. They're like, oh, you're here? Deuces. And I think that's it. So, thanks for joining me, babe, on this episode of YouTube. We're on video, and this is the first time one of us has actually touched the well. I know it's cheesy, but this is a big deal to me. Touch. It's magic. Here, I won't touch it.
Got like a bunch of rat poo all over it.
Yeah. Victory rat poo.
All right, John's turn.
I'm gonna bareback it. What's up, girl? All right. You found it.